Okay, my friends, here it is. The video that is going to explain to you a full year cycle of growing cover crops in the home garden. Now, I'm going to say some things about it, and then I will take you out into the garden and show you the full year circle. So, now is the time. The end of September, beginning of October is the time in zone 5/6, northern Indiana, to be deciding whether or not you want to plant the cover crops. Now, I've made previous videos last year about the difference between fertility adding and soil building. All right, so briefly, I will explain that fertility adding is adding things like manures and compost and crop residues and things like this. All right, this is wonderful, but the only way to build soil is to have a living root in the ground. And I've explained this in previous videos, but only a living root being in the ground has the capability to capture carbon out of the atmosphere and utilizing the power of the sun to convert that carbon into other elements and pump it into the soil in the form of plant exudates, nourishing the life in the soil and actually changing the structure of the soil. That is why a cover crop is so beneficial, because it's doing something that only a plant can do. Soil building is a plant-driven process. Doesn't matter how much manures or anything else you put in there, you're just adding fertility, which is wonderful and is the right choice in many scenarios. But you're not actually building soil. So let us go out into the garden, and I'm going to show you a full year cycle of utilizing the cover crops in the garden. And along the way, I'll be explaining a lot of things, so pay attention. And then when we come back in, I will tell you which cover crop varieties you should choose. Okay, my friends, here in this video, I'm going to show you a method that I came up with several years ago and works really well. And so the foundation of the JDOM system is the crop residue. In the fall time, you take the crop and you return it back to the earth, where that crop is going to be planted again next year, because that will replenish the nutrients that crop needs. That's how nature does it. And so utilizing that principle, we are going to put all the crop residues. Here's where the tomatoes are going next year, so we'll call this year 1. And we put some kale, some of the weeds. It doesn't matter if the tomatoes got diseases and all that stuff. We're going to put it there, and we're going to return those nutrients to the earth like this. If you don't have a lawnmower, that's okay. It will still work. It just won't work as fast. So here you can see that we have tomatoes and kale, some of the weeds and some of the other stuff, dandelions, and this is going to be a rich source of nutrients, guys, especially when we plant the tomatoes here next year. That's right, you heard it. There is no need to crop rotate in the home garden setup. So we've got about 2 to 3 inches of finely minced crop residue on here. And this alone would be adequate for a good fertilization, adding fertility. But we're going to go many steps further, as you will see. So here is a huge pile of leaves and grass that I have turned into this leaf mold over the course of the season. So now in the fall time, this is nowhere near ready. This is not complete compost, but we're going to let it become complete. So we're going to put about 2 to 3 inches of this over the crop residues. And then we are going to take our winter rye and we are going to plant directly on top of the leaf mold. Now you can use compost, or you could use manure, or I've had it work with not even using the leaf mold, just the crop residue, and then sprinkle the cover crop over the top. Now this is several years ago in the fall time, and I had just placed some cover crop seeds there, but what I want to show you is back here. Now this is about October. We've had our first frost, I think, light one. But see, here is the cover crop. After 2 weeks or so, the cover crop will look like this. The winter rye will look like that after about 2 weeks. Now that is a sufficient growth to help over the winter time, but ideally you want to do it a couple of weeks before you get your first frost. And you can see here in the garden how the high intensity planting yields boatloads of produce, and this is really important. So in order to have high intensity, you got to have high nutrients. Now here we are, middle of winter, and the winter rye is super hardy, guys. It doesn't matter if it gets down to negative 30 degrees. The winter rye is holding that soil together, pumping them exudates into the ground all winter long, until springtime comes. Here we are in May. Now this is very important, guys. You have to know when to terminate winter rye, otherwise it will grow back. So here it is. It is at the seed stage. I'm trying to show you the milk stage. It's not quite there yet, but it doesn't matter. So we're going to cut it down as low to the ground as possible. Now, if you wait if you don't wait till the seed stage, it will just grow back like grass. This is why I will explain after this in a minute how to choose which ones to cover crop. So we are going to cut it down low to the ground. Now, in years past, here's a few years ago, I've used the string trimmer like an electric scythe, and it works pretty good. So we just, and it lays down flat. You could use it like a mulch. You could just let it lay there. But I like to put a piece of black plastic over it, and that is going to help the decomposition and help ensure that nothing grows back and speed up the process of the decomposition. Now, this is very important. So we've taken a plug out of the soil here, and we can see the incredible benefits that the cover crop had all winter long. It has held the soil together. Guys, this is Indiana clay. It is literally almost ready to go onto the pottery wheel otherwise. So we can see the direct results of the cover cropping over the last several years has allowed this soil to be friable, has allowed the aggregates to clump together. Do you see all those roots in there? That is all the winter rye cover crop roots. And that's all going to become food for the microbes in the soil, and see how it holds the soil together. But even more importantly, look at all of these, because we put that crop residue in there. Look at all these little wormholes, tons and tons and tons of wormholes. This is why we don't till the soil, because it's already tilled. It's already got air channels. It's already got water channels, especially once these winter rye roots decompose. Look at that big fat boy, that earthworm. Once these winter rye roots decompose, it's going to be food. So all we're going to do is just plant right into it, just like this, guys. We just take out a little plug and we plant that tomato or the pepper or the squash or the eggplant right into there. And we are not tilling, guys. And here we are about May 15th, give or take. And then here we are about late June. And it was a slow season to get started, but here's the same tomatoes, okay? And this purple bumblebee is one plant, guys. These are the 4 plants. And this thing has produced at least a 5-gallon bucket so far. It's still going, and it's October. And so everything was really nice and healthy, guys. The soil had everything it needed, and guess what? I did not fertilize the entire season. Okay, I put a couple fish in the hole when I planted it, if you watch my video in the spring, but I did not fertilize. All I used was a special type of compost tea that I make myself, but there was no additional fertilizer, guys. This is the power of the cover crop and crop residue. So that's how it's done, my friends. Now, this is very important. When you choose to use the no-till system of cover crop, as we're doing here, you have to understand that you can only terminate the cover crop at the right time. If you don't, it's just going to keep growing back. So for that reason, you have to plan ahead and say, okay, only where I'm going to plant the heat-loving plants, like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, eggplants, that's where I'm going to do the cover crop, because it coincides right at about the right time. If you're trying to plant cold hardy stuff early in the season, the no-till method of cover cropping is not going to be for you. But the next video, I will show you what you can do with the cover crops. So if the temperature gets below -10 degrees Fahrenheit, it will kill off the crimson clover. So if your temperatures are above that, I recommend crimson clover and winter rye, a combination of the two. If the temperatures are below -10 in the winter, then I recommend mammoth red clover and winter rye. So there you go, my friends. Give the video a thumbs up. Put the questions in the comments. If you got questions, meet us here every Saturday at 12 noon Eastern time for a live Q&A. And I would direct you to this video here if you want to learn more about if the cover crop is right for your setup or not.